So anyway, yeah, buy your tickets for $260 so I can go for free. Anything stand out to you about this picture? How would you describe his face? Mysterious. You know the word pensive? That means? Pensive is thoughtful, but almost like, I was about to say wistfully, but that's not going to help. Almost melancholy. Not sad, but, you know, yeah. He was known for being this. There was another philosopher, I believe his name was Herodotus. He was known as the laughing philosopher. He died laughing. And he was known for just being a happy-go-lucky guy. He was the opposite of Herodotus. He was the pensive philosopher. So he's kind of known for looking this way. I don't think we have anything contemporary from him. And it's unfortunate because he's a really influential guy. One of the things I love about philosophy, and people ask about it, I do love the fact that it teaches us how to live properly. But more than that, philosophy is the ground troops, the ground soldiers of science. So every science that we have, chemistry started off as a philosophy. So philosophers get a hold of an idea, we work on it, we develop rule systems around it, ways of understanding it, definitions, all of that. And then some people come along and they say, oh, chemistry, yes, thank you, philosophy, we appreciate that. And then they take it off and they turn it into what we call a science. So philosophy always does the groundwork for thinking processes. Artificial intelligence, today it's a science. It's going to sound like it was a long time ago, but it wasn't that long ago that I was an undergraduate in university. When I was there, artificial intelligence was all about philosophy. It was about consciousness, understanding, being. And then now today, we're developing the metaverse and all these video games around artificial intelligence and all this stuff. So I love a lot of the Greek philosophy because, even as we're talking about simulation theory, right? That we live in a simulation. That goes back to Plato trying to figure out the allegory of the cave. That's what it's all based off of. That's where that thinking leads. Heraclitus is a guy who understands that change is universal. Now today we look at it and we say, change is inevitable. And we all go, yeah, everything changes, everybody changes. But he understood it at a level theoretical that he even pointed out that there are these things called atoms. Have you ever heard of them before? Yes. Of course, everybody has today. They didn't have a way of detecting them back then. It was something that philosophy postulated. In order for the universe to be as it is, there must be these little things called atoms that compose all of us. That comes from thinking, from philosophy. It wasn't that one day some guy develops a microscope and he's like, I wonder what the universe is made of. Oh my goodness, these little tiny things that are in there. The reason that you go looking for those things is because philosophers came before and said, I think that this is what the universe is made out of. And then people go looking for it, and then they discover it. And then that's how it becomes a science, once the ideas are proven. So Heraclitus argued that everything is in flux, nothing stays at rest. Everything is constantly and perpetually changing. There are these stories about him, they're probably not true, but there are these stories about him that he would stand in front of his students and would wag his finger like this. And then the students would all sit there and go, His point was that, and again, it's probably not true. That's the kind of thing where, I'll read sometimes that people will say, I was in a philosophy class, and the professor walked in and asked, why? And then I said, why not? And he said, good, and gave me an A. That's not what philosophy is. That's stupid. It's not just navel-gazing. Instead, but the point of the story about him wagging his finger was, I can't talk about anything. Because the second I start talking about it, it has changed. So, for example, as I was talking with Rohani, I'm a different person right now than I was when I began this sentence. And you guys are all different people right now than you were when I began this sentence. Because you've taken in some auditory stimulation. You've seen some things in the room, unconsciously even. Your brain has been working, which means that your brain has developed in certain ways, which means that you are perpetually in the present, but you're perceiving the world through the past. Even as I walk here in front of you, every movement that I'm making, it takes very, very split milliseconds. But it does take time for you to see my movements, process what's going on, and then make sense of it. So the me that you're seeing right now is not the me that's right here. The me that you're seeing is the me that was back there a second ago. And the me that you're not perceiving is the one that's about to be over there. But not about to be. I actually am there right now. You just don't perceive it. Which means that we're all living perpetually in the past. It might explain why we have such an affinity for the past. Because maybe intuitively we understand this. The past was always better. Because why? It was predictable. Because when I perceived the past, it was the present. Let's say that again. We like the past because it's predictable. Because the past that we're perceiving is now the present. You can think of it. I'll leave it. I'll let you ponder that. I'll let you come back to the video in 15 years and go, what the hell was he talking about? And then one day you'll be walking down the street and you're going to go, oh. And then you're going to turn to someone and you're going to try to explain it, and they're going to be like, huh? It's just something a madman told you once. But this is the point, is that you're constantly changing. I mean, in fact, I've talked about it before with regard to, like, you're thinking of your body as a car and thinking of you, the actual you, as the thing that drives the car. Your soul, your spirit, your mind, whatever you want to call it, is the thing that is controlling this body of yours. And the idea is that when you crash the car, you're like, well, that was a fun ride. Open the door, hopefully, and you get out. You get out. You leave your body behind, but there's a thing that's you that's perpetually changing. So even if you don't like the idea of soul or spirit, we have to at least acknowledge mind. And that's what you are. And your mind is nothing more, I shouldn't say nothing more, sorry. Your mind is nothing less than a collection of psychological states over time. If I ask you right now, what's the worst experience that you've ever had? And give you time to dig into it. Now imagine I could go into the past and get hold of 7-year-old you and ask you, what's the worst experience you've ever had? I'm asking the same person, aren't I? But I'm going to get two very different answers because you've grown. Or I shouldn't even say grown. You've gained more experience, so now you have a greater frame of reference. That's who you are. You're that frame of reference. This is so important to keep in mind when we're talking with people. Because when you're talking to people and you're trying to resolve conflict, when you're trying to start conflict, when you're trying to just get a cheeseburger at McDonald's, whatever it is, that's what you're interacting with. You're interacting with a whole lifetime of experiences which are coming together at this moment right now, which are going to shape how it is that they perceive you. All of you walked in on the first day and you saw me and you had thoughts. You had thoughts about me. There's one student I'm thinking of right now who told me recently that she said to me, quote, I hated your fucking guts the whole first semester. I was like, why? What do I do? You know, it's like, well, and she couldn't really describe it. And I said, dude, think about it. Seriously, you walk in here, I talk for a little while, I don't even make you write anything, I just say, here's what you're supposed to be doing. I don't stand above you, come on, get this stuff done. I don't give you crap if you're on your phone. I asked you on the first day not to have earbuds in when I'm talking, but have I ever gone to you guys and said, hey, take those out of your ear? I've never enforced that rule. The only rule I enforce, what's the one single rule I enforce? Don't put your head down. That's all. Because that's just blatant disrespect. That's all it is. You know, that's all it has to do with. You can go to the bathroom whenever you, you can go to the bathroom whenever you want. You have all of these freedoms, and still someone looking at me and go, prick. What? Oh, sorry, and don't be loud and obnoxious just because there are people who are trying to do things. Don't be a distraction to others. Those are the only, and even then, I'm pretty lax with that. How many times do people have to like explode loudly before I'll finally say something? It takes a few times before I'll finally say. I'll see it, I'll shake my head. Second time, I'll give a look. Third time, I'll give a look. Finally, maybe fourth time, I'll get up and go and say something about it. But this person says, and I told this person that, and then she goes, yeah, I just hated you.
Wow.
And so I don't, and she's like, no, but I think you're fine now. I'm like, well, here's the question. What's changed, you or me? And she said, I think it's the way I see you. Fair enough. That's an honest answer. Because a less honest answer might be, oh, because you're more chill now than you were. Am I more chill now than I was the first semester? You know, I don't think I'm very different at all from the second day that I am now. The first day I'm different. The first day I'm whatever. Second day, you know, I don't think I'm any different. Maybe I am. Maybe you perceive it. But the question is, does it matter that I am different, or does it matter that you perceive me as different? Because in all of our human interactions, there are those two parts, and they're both equally important. There's how you perceive. There's what I say. Hello, how are you? And then there's how you perceive it. Hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? Hi, hello, how are you? which of those did you hear? Versus, oh, this guy was just here. Oh, he's a little creepy the way he said that. Hi, how are you? And what a jerk, man, he didn't even mean it. Now, who knows how I can tell you how I meant to say it. But it's just like if you're looking at a Rorschach test, the ink blot test. What's on the page? Well, there's nothing on the page. There's something inside of you. But that's very important. Don't miss that. When we're looking at a painting, and I ask you, what do you see? The artist who made that is dead today. He's no longer with us. He was a former student of mine. Now, he can't stand here and tell you what the painting means, but he's contributed his 50%. He's put it onto, I don't even know what that would be. It's not canvas. He put it onto some material, and then now you all are looking at it. And now that's the other half of the equation. What do you perceive? What do you see? What's going on there? What's it about? Because whatever it's about to you, if he comes in and says, if you look at that and you go, oh, those are planets, and he comes in and says, no, it's geometry, I was really into math, you'd be like, whatever, man, cool planets. It almost doesn't matter what the artist says. Have you ever had an argument with somebody or a spirited discussion with somebody, and it almost doesn't matter what they say because you're ready to hear what you're ready to hear? Or, sorry, that hasn't been you, because that's a biased way of approaching conversations. Have you ever had a conversation with somebody and that's how they approach it? They're not even listening to what you're saying. They're hearing what they want to hear. And that's because none of us perceives the world the way that it really is. We all perceive the world the way that we really are. And it's only through deep introspection, personal analysis, all of this stuff that's really hard work on a daily and almost minute-by-minute basis to break down those biases so that we can strive to understand the world the way that it really is, to understand people the way that they really are. And what you're going to find is that most people are not the things that we think that they are. Most people, or maybe they are, maybe that's the terrifying part, because most people are exactly the way that we are. I wonder if any of you guys wake up in the morning and you're like, time to cause some chaos. Or how many of you wake up in the morning and you don't even think anything except have to get up. And you go through most of your day not planning to do good or evil or even thinking in those terms. In fact, I imagine most of us go through our days and those two words never even enter our mind. Unless we're in this class that day. And all of a sudden they seem to show up disproportionately. But instead, you just go through life. Most people are like that. Most people are like that. They just go through life and we cross each other at strange paths. And then when that happens, you find yourself having to apologize. Or not. But you know you were sorry, and that's good enough, right? Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you were totally 100% completely wrong, you felt tiny about it, and you had to apologize? It happened to me a couple of days ago. Yeah.
Could it be like say, you know how you see like a lot of self-help gurus and like podcasts, people talking about, you know, improving yourself daily, and then you have like for example, say your parents, you know,
and they always talk the same way. You notice that the podcast people? It's always sound like this. You have to take control of your day. Listen, I'm telling you right now, you have to seize the day. Right? There's always like those pauses because they don't really believe what they're saying.
So like I was thinking about it, like, say your parents, you know how they tell you to get your ass up, to clean your room, to do that. But if someone like, say Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan said that, you'd be like, damn, I really gotta do that.
Yeah, that's my job here. You guys are gonna ignore almost everything I say. Why? Because I'm just your teacher. I'm just fill in the blank, but you can't help it. I'm throwing little seeds around. And then at some point you'll be listening to someone who you actually care about, and they're gonna say something like, "Have you ever noticed that like the world's always changing and like think about it, like you perceive." I don't know why I'm using that weird voice, but I'm gonna use it anyway. But think about it, like when you perceive something, it takes you a second to process it, which means you're always perceiving the past. And then you're gonna be like, yeah. But as I'm saying it right now, it's like Greek philosophy. But you're going to understand it. And you might be like, no, it's the way that they explained it. No, maybe. Or maybe it's because you're ready today in a way that you weren't ready yesterday. Because you've been prepared, because you've had some time to marinate on it, to think about these things, even if you aren't thinking about it consciously. And it happens to all of you, by the way. It happens to all of you, by the way. When you're, I I don't know, why is it that when you're a little kid and someone tells you, I don't know, clean your room, and you're like, that's the sound you make too, And then when you're a little older, someone tells you to clean your room, and then someone tells you to clean your room, and all of a sudden one day you're listening to the internet and someone says, you know, cleaning your room indicates a high level of personal discipline, which if you can commit yourself to that will now carry over into every other area of your life. And you're going to go, I wish someone had explained it to me like that. If that was the first time you heard that, you probably would have said, bullshit. Well, it's got nothing to do with everything else. Why would you even say that? But it's only because you've been exposed to an idea a whole bunch of times that now you develop an affinity for it. One of the ways that you can get people to like you. Give me a second. I remember the name of what I'm trying to remember what it's called. Familiarity. I don't know what it's called. But it's essentially an idea that's based off of the more familiar that you are with people, the more you get used to people being around, the more you like them. And so if you want someone to like you, be around all the time. You know? You might think like, oh, but I don't know, I get tired of people. But who are you always around? You're always around the people that you're always around. I'm going to say that again. Who are you always around? You're always around the people who you're always around. So if you want to ingratiate yourself to somebody, you just always be around. And then they get used to you being around, and now you're always around. Because that's who our friend group is, isn't it? The people who are always around. And so, now again, nothing is everything. So you might say, no, not me, maybe not you. Maybe not you. Maybe just the other, tens of thousands of people who we've studied and it's proven true. Maybe. But if you can, well, I think at that point, I'll leave that at that. But the idea is that you're prepared differently. You're prepared differently. If you're 2 years old and I throw you into a pool, what might your reaction to that be? Cry, scream, flip out. And then I dive in the pool, I pull you out, I'm like, okay, little one, you are not yet ready. And then you're 5 years old, and I throw you in the water. What's your reaction going to be? Maybe not as bad, maybe the same. Did any of you learn how to swim that way, by the way?
Yeah.
You just had someone go, hey, let's teach him how to swim. They throw you in, all of a sudden you just kind of figure it out. That's how I learned how to swim. That's how a lot of people learn how to swim. Then they have these like YMCA courses where they'll, in just 7 weeks, we'll teach you how to swim. it's like in floaties, and you're just like, like an astronaut floating around in the water, and then all of a sudden and then like their real instruction comes like in the last 3 days of it, and then you learn how to swim, and then you feel all what they're doing is they're getting used to you having you in the water and be comfortable with it and all that. But a lot of you learn how to swim just because of that. So what's the difference between age 2 and 5? Why is it that at age 5 maybe you can figure it out, age 2 you can't? Certainly if I throw you by age 10, you'll probably be able to figure it out. You're the same person, right? No. You're the same person. You're not the same personality, I guess. Because you've grown in certain ways. The same is true with any situation. The first time that, if any of you have ever gone through a heartbreak before, you understand that there's one thing that's true about heartbreak. It's going to last forever, right? No one's ever going to love you. This was your one shot at love. Oh my God, I'm going to end up penniless and homeless and living in a van down by the river because I am forever alone. And then all of a sudden, a few days go by, or a few hours go by, or a few weeks, whatever your emotional state is, and you feel better. And then you're like, and then especially if you're a 14-year-old girl listening to Billie Eilish, and you say, never again. And then all of a sudden, one day you meet someone, it's like, okay, it's just because I've been hurt before. Sorry. I've been hurt before. And then someone gets you to open up, and then you're posting about how you never thought you could find love again. And this love is just the thing, man. It lasts for a good 2 months, maybe. Which I call them, student years is like dog years, multiplied by 7. So 1 week is actually like 7 weeks. 1 year is like 7 years. People will say these like, oh, I was in a relationship over summer, a whole summer, a whole 6 weeks. Well, no, just the first 2 weeks of it. I'm like, wow, that's like 14 weeks. That's a while, man. How'd you get over it? And then by the time you get to like your 3rd heartbreak or your 4th heartbreak, it still hurts, and you're still the same person. It's just that you've changed, and now you've developed an ability to deal with it. I'm thinking of a friend of mine who was absolutely in love with someone, and then she broke up, and they broke up, and the first time they broke up, I mean, she was inconsolable, man, and she just, for weeks and weeks, I thought he was the one. They had talked about marriage and all these things, and they were old enough that is very likely to be a situation. And then they got back together again. And then they were together for a few years, and then they broke up again. And that second time, I'm asking her, so how are you? And she's like, very different from the first time. She said, the first time I didn't think I was going to survive that, but now I guess I did the first time, and so I guess I'll get through it this time. It's because she's changed. You know, she's standing in the same river, theoretically, the same river of heartbreak, but she's not the same person. If you stand in that river when you're 2 years old, that water is above your head, you're going to drown in it. If you stand in that river when you're 5, maybe it comes up to your shoulder and you're unstable and you're a little anxious, but you can survive it. If you stand in that same river when you're 10 years old, now it's coming up to your waist and you're having fun and you're like, whoa, and you're even like coming up on your heels to make things more difficult for yourself because it's fun. And then when you're 20, then when you're 20 years old maybe, no, forget that. When you're like 14 now, you'll stand in that same river and you'll be like, it's just a river. It's just water. I can use my bathtub. Or 13 years old maybe. And then when you're 25 years old, you'll be out in that same river and you're like, man, I love nature. I need to get out to nature more often. And then you're going to be, all of a sudden, from 25, your fingers are going to snap and you're going to be 65. And you're going to be standing in that river remembering all of those times that you were standing in the river. And man, you really hope you get to come back next year and stand in that same river again. Because it's a beautiful thing that you now will understand and appreciate. And that's one of the things it is about growing older, is that you start to, there's a weird thing when you're a little kid, you appreciate everything. That's a great thing if you ever go to the beach and you see little kids at the beach, like the first time they've ever been there, and they're approaching it like an adventure, like a superhero. They're walking out to the water, even nice and low, and then maybe they look back to make sure that there's someone nearby in case things go bad, and then the water ebbs, and then it flows, and then they're excited, their little shoulders come up, and they're like little tiny scarecrows, they're just like bones, right? And they start to walk out there again, and you can see this happening, and you can hopefully look at something like that and remember what it was like to have that kind of excitement. And maybe there's a thing that happens in people where they start to look at that, and they long for it, like, man, I long for that excitement in life. But that's the problem. That's why you're missing the excitement in life. Because when you were a little kid, you couldn't help but be overwhelmed by the newness of everything. We get to a certain age which we fail in life, and that failure is exactly this. It's to see the world in stereotyped ways. Oh, this is the same river. No, it's not. The river has changed. Certainly you have changed. It's just the ocean. No, that ocean has changed. It has ebbed and flowed hundreds of thousands of times since you've been here last. And it has changed. And this is the thing, is that we tend to be changed by the world, not even realize it. And then we look at everything and we say, nothing is different. You know people like this, I imagine. Anybody, I don't know if you guys have ever, I always go back to that example of being in love, but maybe you'll say like you've been in love before, and you've always got that usually an older family member, the older they are, the more facial expression they make. And they'll even do like that little smug smirk, like, you don't know what love is. I was in love. Yeah, I was in love too when I was your age. No, you weren't. You weren't in love in the same way, because it wasn't the same love and you're not the same person. You had a completely different set of life experiences that had you at that point that you were in love. I have a completely different set of life experiences that have me at this point. The emotion, the sentiment is similar in the same way that we can both eat a cheeseburger from McDonald's, and a little kid will say, this is some gourmet shit. And you'll eat the cheeseburger and go, Five Guys is better. Yeah, I said Five Guys. What's up? I'll stand by that. I know some of you guys go, In and Out. No, Five Guys. Deal with it. Five Guys is a superior cheeseburger. In-N-Out's very good, but it's not Five Guys. And some of you right now are sitting there going like, oh, he's crazy. In-N-Out's way better. Because how is that possible? Aren't we both human beings? How is it that we can perceive the exact same experience so radically different? Because we're different. It's like, duh. No, think about that. If I take two pieces of iron and I put them out in the desert, and I walk away, and I come back in 10 years, those things are going to look exactly the same. Because they're made of the same stuff. They're encountering the same environment. And yet I can take two people, made of the same stuff, right? So we're all humans. We're all made of the same stuff, chemically. I can now put you both at Five Guys, and one of you is going to be like, this is gourmet stuff. Another one of you is going to say, In-N-Out's better. How is that? You're made of the same stuff. Because there's something else that's interacting in the way that nothing else is interacting. So there's something interacting with us that's not going on with the iron, which is that thing, the soul, the mind, the spirit, the psyche, that collection of psychological experiences over time. And that's why it becomes so important to guard yourself, because those collections of experiences are going to determine a lot. They're going to influence, not determine, they're going to heavily influence how you perceive the world. So you have to guard yourself, because if you want to perceive the world in a pessimistic way, it's going to happen if you surround yourself with pessimism. If you want to see the beauty of life, well, you have to surround yourself with beauty. That's the interesting thing about it. There is beauty all around you. The problem is going back to what I said a minute ago about stereotyped views of the world. We tend to look at the world and say, it's the same ocean, it's the same flower, it's the same love. Well, now you're losing the ability to see the minute differences in all those things, because even if the flower hasn't changed, it has, but even if it hasn't changed, you've changed. You're going to see it differently. No, it wasn't this class. It was my last class. Someone was saying that they had seen, what movie was it? The Little Mermaid. She said she had seen The Little Mermaid 3 times. Like, why would you watch it 3 times? Why would you watch a movie 3 times?
Because you enjoy it.
Because you enjoy it? Do you enjoy it more every time you watch it? You enjoy it differently, maybe. You ever watch a movie and you go, I've never seen that before. I've never noticed that. Oh, all of a sudden that makes sense. That's because you've changed. And you're changed again once you encounter those things. Everything that you encounter in life. Am I going to qualify that? I'm going to say exactly what it is. Everything that you encounter in life changes you. So you have to be careful about what you expose yourself to, because it's going to change you for better or worse. Whether it's a song, whether it's love, whether it's The Little Mermaid, whether it's Heraclitus. Everything is in motion. Everything is in flux. Nothing is at rest. Every experience that you have is new and fresh. And we fail to recognize that, which is why we get bored in life. Because we fail to see the incredible changing beauty that's around us every minute. And once you start to realize it, well, there's almost isn't time for anything else except to enjoy what's going on. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques?
There's a quote that I forgot who it was. It was like, the moment you're born is where you're physically dead, but the moment you're born is when you're spiritually alive. Because as time goes on, you're gonna deteriorate, but as time goes on, you're gonna gain consciousness and experience and so on. So even if you're dead, you have something to remember your spirit, but physically, you're dead. I forgot how it goes, but it's like that.
I'm that asshole at the party that when someone makes that, you always get that pseudo-spiritual uncle who says something like, we start to die the minute we're born. Everyone's like, yeah. And that guy that sits there like Dwight and says, false. Your body actually continues to generate until you're 25, and then it's downhill from there. So it should be from the day you turn 25, you start to die. And then we'd all be like, yeah. It just doesn't sound as cool. I wonder why people hate philosophers.